Russia rejects ceasefire talks. Lavrov says only serious peace talks count. In a stark escalation of diplomatic rhetoric, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergey has publicly rejected the idea of negotiating a ceasefire in Ukraine unless it is part of a comprehensive peace settlement. His comments, delivered in Moscow this week, have added fuel to deepening global concern over the prospects for ending more than 4 years of war. Lavrov's remarks mark a clear shift from the prevailing international approach, which has increasingly called for temporary pauses in fighting while full peace negotiations continue. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Lavrov emphasized that while Russia may be open to serious peace talks, discussions about a ceasefire ahead of a full agreement are simply not serious, effectively dismissing Western and Ukrainian calls for a truce. According to Lavrov, proposals centered on pausing hostilities risk becoming tools for Gaju to regroup its military forces. He argued that such proposals are not pathways to peace, but instead grant Ukraine a tactical advantage that Moscow finds unacceptable, by tying any cessation of hostilities to a broader settlement. Lavrov reiterated that Moscow's priority remains negotiations, focused on what it views as core political and territorial issues, not temporary silences of guns. The Russian foreign minister also referenced ongoing diplomatic efforts by U.S., including planned trips by senior American representatives to Moscow. He stated that President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly indicated willingness to engage in substantive discussions provided all parties come to the table with credible plans. Lavrov suggested it would be helpful if Washington shared its latest peace proposals with Moscow directly, indicating continued communication, but also highlighting divergences in expectations. Lavrov's stance comes amid heightened international pressure for a ceasefire. World leaders, including those in Europe and the United States, have argued that a cessation of fighting would reduce civilian casualties and create a more conducive environment for diplomatic negotiation. Ukrainian officials have repeatedly stated they are prepared to discuss peace, but only once hostilities have genuinely stopped and any negotiations are grounded in respect for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. From the Russian perspective, however, Lavrov's comments signal a firm rejection of incremental approaches. His insistence on linking peace exclusively to comprehensive negotiations reflects wider strategic priorities in Moscow, which are interpreted by Western analysts as a refusal to acknowledge ceasefire frameworks that leave unresolved disputes over territory, security guarantees, and post-war political order. The implications are significant. Without a ceasefire, large-scale combat operations are expected to continue, placing civilians at further risk and prolonging the humanitarian crisis. Aid agencies have warned that continued hostilities will exacerbate displacement, disrupt essential services, and strain already fragile infrastructure across eastern Ukraine and beyond. International responses to Lavrov's statements have been swift. European leaders have reiterated support for a defined ceasefire as a necessary first step toward peace, while officials in Kyiv have insisted they will not compromise on territorial sovereignty or accept frameworks that entrench Russian gains from the conflict. In the United States, policymakers are divided, some advocating sustained pressure through sanctions and diplomatic engagement, others arguing for fresh approaches to incentivize Russian concessions. At the heart of the standoff is a fundamental question: whether peace should be pursued incrementally or as part of a broader, legally binding settlement. Lavrov's public rejection of ceasefire negotiations underscores how far apart Moscow's position remains from the expectations of Ukraine and its Western allies. It also raises doubts about the near-term prospects of reducing violence on the ground. Analysts suggest that unless either side modifies its negotiating stance or a credible mediator emerges capable of bridging these gaps, the conflict risks becoming increasingly intractable. For now, Lavrov's pronouncement stands as a stark reminder that the path to peace, however urgently desired by millions around the world, remains distant and fraught with political complexity. If you want to stay updated on this story and other major global events, subscribe for the latest breaking news and in-depth coverage